Hi, I'm Donna Wolfe from Naztazia.com.
In this video, I'll show how to connect granny squares using the instant join method. This technique involves making a new granny square and using slip stitches to connect it to existing granny squares. With this method, it's helpful to put 3 chain stitches in each of the corners and 1 chain stitch in between the 3 double crochet stitches along the sides of the granny square. I complete my first granny square in blue, and then I partially make my second granny square in pink. In the corners, I would normally make 3 chains. I'm only going to chain 1, then make a slip stitch in the corner of my blue granny square to serve as a chain 2. I'm removing my hook and pulling my loop upwards, but feel free to just make a regular slip stitch without removing the hook. Then I make 1 more chain stitch for a total of 3 chains. I follow that with the normal 3 more double crochet stitches in the corner of this pink granny square. As I'm showing here, the pink granny square has its second chain stitch in the corner connected to the blue granny square. For this next connection, we need a chain 1. However, instead of chaining 1, I'm making a slip stitch into the next space from the blue granny square to connect them together at this point. Then I proceed on with making 3 more double crochet stitches all in the next space of my pink granny square, which is a regular process for making the sides of granny squares. Then, instead of a chain 1, I slip stitch over into the next space of the blue granny square so that the pink granny square and blue granny square get joined together at that point. Now I'm working on the corner of my pink granny square, so the regular process is to start with 3 double crochet stitches all made in that corner space. Instead of a chain 3, we're going to divide it up a bit. We'll start with the chain 1, then slip stitch over to the blue granny square to serve as the chain 2, and then make 1 more chain to serve as the 3 chain stitches in the corner. Then proceed with finishing the pink granny square corner by making 3 more double crochet stitches all in that corner space. Some patterns only call for 2 chains in the corner of granny squares, but with this instant join method, the 3 chains are a better option so that the granny squares don't become too tight in the corner. In my case, I'm just going to finish my pink granny square the regular way from now on, since there is nothing on that unfinished side to join to at this time. And now it's time to join the next square. So I'm going to crochet what I can around the other edges until I get to the point that I need to join this new square. The first join is a corner, so I'll start with the chain 1. And I'm going to turn my squares around a bit so that it's easier to see. There are several options as to where to join the corner to. I generally just pick the closest corner to join to. So in this case, I'm joining to the pink corner instead of the other blue corner. Since we have technically 2 chains made, we'll make our third and final chain for this corner of the blue square. And then finish the double crochet stitches as the pattern usually calls for. Then for all the other connection points, instead of a chain 1, make a slip stitch from this new blue square over to the pink square. And in the corners, remember to do the chain 1 first, then the slip stitch, then another chain 1 to serve as the 3rd chain that we would normally put in the corners of granny squares. Then finish the blue square and get ready for yet another pink square that will be joined along 2 different squares this time. As always, pivot the work to make it easier to join the squares. Since my pink square is a corner, I have to chain 1 first, then do the slip stitch over to the blue square, then make a chain 1 to complete the 3 chains in the corner pattern. I proceed with the other connection points. Then at the next corner, I have decisions to make as to where to make the slip stitch. Feel free to use any of the corners. I happen to use the diagonal slip stitch with this 4th join since it seems to add less bulk and looks pretty good. Continue with making a slip stitch along each of the connection points. In the corner, make a chain 1, slip stitch, and another chain 1, then complete the pink square. Continue to add new squares along the connection points with slip stitches. And that's how I do the instant join with granny squares.